Hello, and I want to welcome you today. Can you all hear me? No? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. So I want to welcome you all here today to our Hawkeye Lunch and Learn lecture. And my name is Linda Snetzler. I'm the Associate Provost of Outreach and Engagement here at the university. And today it's my great honor to have with us both Jim Hayes and Maura Pilcher, who will be talking about the Grant Wood Art Colony. I want you to know that the Hawkeye Lunch and Learns occur once a month. So every month you can, during the semester, you can hear me? Is that better? Okay, thank you. So once a month we have lectures here in this space, and would love to have as many of you as possible attend those lectures. Today, as I have said, Maura Pilcher and Jim Hayes will be doing the lecture on the topic of the Grant Wood Art Colony. And I just want to take a moment to tell you that our next lecture will be called Continuing a Tradition of Civil Rights in Iowa, and Professor Angela Onwuachi-Willig from the College of Law will be presenting, and that will be on May 2nd here in Iowa City. So hope that you can attend that as well. So what I would like to do now is introduce to you two of the people who are doing wonderful things in the Office of Outreach and Engagement. And I'm going to begin with Jim Hayes. He was raised on a farm here in Iowa near Forest City, and he graduated from Loras College in Dubuque, Iowa, and received his BA in history, then came here to the University of Iowa to receive his law degree. His first positions held after graduating from law school were Iowa Deputy Commissioner of Public Safety, and then he was the first director of the Iowa Crime Commission. He was a candidate for State Attorney General and then began trial practice with Meerden Law Firm here in Iowa City. And he formed Hayes Lorenzen Lawyers PLC with Karen Lorenzen in 1999, and currently that law office has 5 lawyers. Jim lives in Iowa City in the beautiful Grant Wood house, and Grant Wood actually resided in that home from 1935 until 1942. And Jim is an avid art collector. I think living in the Grant Wood home has also really increased his commitment to honoring Wood's work. The Grant Wood Art Colony at the University of Iowa really is a manifestation of his compassion and concern and work toward helping us to all understand more about Grant Wood. Jim began the colony in collaboration with the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences in 2011, and he serves as the chair of the colony's National Board of Advisors. And then Maura, who will be presenting second, is currently the director of the Grant Wood Art Colony here at the University of Iowa. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Anthropology and Art History from the University of Notre Dame and a Master of Science in Historic Preservation from the School of Art Institute of Chicago. She is also an Iowa native, and she returned to Cedar Rapids in 2008 to become the assistant director of Bruce Moore. This is a national historic site, and as assistant director, she oversaw house museum operations, preservation, conservation initiatives, and also building and ground staff. Maura has over 15 years of experience in the museum industry. That includes Bruce Moore, the very famous Phillips Collection in Washington, D.C., the Field Museum in Chicago, the Snite Museum of Art in Notre Dame. She has participated on preservation-related panels and provided workshops for national audiences, and also serves on local and state boards. So it's at this point my honor to introduce Jim Hayes, and Maura will be coming up following Jim's presentation.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Linda. It's cannot. I don't know what I do about that. Higher up. Catherine, is that better? Okay, great. Can people in the back hear? Terry, can you hear? How about, how about right here? Let me put it on my tie. How about that? How about that? Bad again? I'm just going to hold the damn thing. Okay. Well, what a great pleasure for Maura and myself to see this great crowd. I mean, we've only been at this for about 5 years, and look how it's taken off, the interest. But the interest in Grant Wood has always been there, ever since Grant Wood was an artist and made his fame in Cedar Rapids and then moved to Iowa City. What Maura and I are going to do today is talk about the Grant Wood Colony, which had its inception, and I'll talk about that a little later, back in 2009. But in order to talk about the colony, we also have to talk about the Grant Wood House. And I think probably most everybody here has at least driven by the house. Many folks have been in the house and have heard parts or all of what Maura and I are going to say today. But to give you a little perspective, this is the property up at the top yellow line. That's Burlington Street, and down here is Court Street. Over here is Summit. And so my house is right here, and then there are 4 houses behind 1142. So 1142 is what we call the house, and that's its designated number. It's known by all of us as the Grant Wood House as well. And this is a good shot of the Grant Wood House of 1142, and it's pretty much ingrained in many of our minds as we think of Grant Wood's house in Iowa City. When you see the house, you see some immediate things which are emblematic of Grant Wood. One is the red star, iron stars that are on the sides of the house. He didn't place those. Nicholas Oakes, the builder of the house, did that. But Grant Wood incorporated the red stars into his very famous Parson Weems fable. And we'll see that a little bit later on. You probably remember that. One of the first things you see, probably the first thing you see, is Grant Wood's designed and built picket fence. It's really, really a beautiful, I call it a structure, because it indeed is. Grant Wood took such care in hand casting the iron finials, the little acorn finials, which are to signify his respect for the Oakes family. And the Oakes family had used the acorn finials around the perimeter of the roof of the house, the corbels and the finials there. Sure, I will. It sounds really loud up here. So, but at any rate, you see the beautiful limestone wall, Stone City limestone, which Grant Wood installed. He here's a guy that was in Iowa City from 1934 to his death in 1942, painting, doing woodworking, doing stone sculpting at the end of his career. And he had time to renovate a house, build fences, lay stone walls, and all the while doing his important work like Parson Weems' Fable, Spring in Town, those paintings. Again, a little detail of the fence. He designed this little handle so that he could walk in and out of his property with groceries in his arm and could move the gate open with his arm by sliding the handle over. Again, another picture and another wonderful detail of the house was the louvered door that he designed. And again, you're going to see that louvered door in Parson Weems' Fable because that design is prominent in Parson Weems' Fable. Corbels, finials. Some history on the house is that back in 1855, Nicholas and Mary Oakes moved from Ohio to Iowa City. He was a farmer at that time, but he was becoming a brickmaker. And so they learned that Iowa City had great clay banks, and so they came to Iowa City. And they built this. He built this house. It was probably a show place for the product that he was manufacturing. But this is a picture of the house in about 1906. And at that time, you can see that the original design of the house had a front porch, a nicely designed front porch. The family lived at 1142, and at that time, notice the tin roof. There had been a cedar, not shakes, but cedar shingles originally, then tin, then more cedar. And by the time I bought the house in 1975, 2 layers of asphalt on top of all that. So lots of layers of roofing. So the family lived in this house until Mom and Dad died off in 2005 and 2007, I believe it was. And then a daughter-in-law and son inherited or bought the house, Fanny and Frank. And this is the way the house looked when Grant Wood saw it for the first time. This awful porch was placed in the place of the original nice porch. Fanny took all the shutters off and made chicken coops out of them. She built this porch. She took the beautiful banister on the staircase inside, removed that, stored it thankfully in the carriage house, but built this contraption staircase of 2x4s and other kinds of wood. So, needless to say, when Wood came to Iowa City to teach at the school, and he came as a lecturer first for the Project Works Arts program, and he came and was appointed a lecturer. He did his work, the 4 murals that are at Iowa State University, and the 4 murals that are at the what was the Des Moines Public Library, now the World Foods Project, the building. And these, the 4 are at Iowa State, of course, and then the 4 at the Old Des Moines Public Library are still there and in the lower levels. So if you go to Des Moines, to the World Food Center, you can go downstairs and see those 4 pieces. I don't, Mary, if you have been down there and seen those or not, but at any rate, that was his first studio was Halsey Hall. If you remember where the swimming pool was, well, the swimming pool was empty and was dry, and that's where he painted in 1934. So in 35, he moved to Iowa City, and late in 1934, he was appointed an associate professor in the School of Fine Arts at the university, and that started his tenure on the faculty. He had a stormy relationship, to say the least, with the people at the university. At this time, recall that he had become very famous with American Gothic, that great piece that is at least the second most recognized painting in the world. And Sean O'Hara, never one for understatement, says, and he says that he believes that really it's the most recognized piece of art in the world today. But at any rate, he came to the university with great recognition. And, you know, he was traveling all over the world, giving speeches and talking to folks. And, you know, he only had a high school education. So that I don't think that was, didn't go down so well. So he started his work here in 34, and then into 35, he'd gotten married and had seen this house. And it was really in worse condition than the picture that you see here. Some of the windows were out. The granddaughter of the Oakes family told me that pigeons were flying through the windows and into the stairways and that kind of stuff. But Grant Wood saw something that maybe nobody else saw. He saw the beautiful arched windows, the arched doorway, the squares, the circles, the sturdy brick that represented so much to him of Iowa and the landscape. And he bought it and restored it. When his sister, Nan, from the American Gothic, was at my house for dinner in 1976, one of the things she said was Grant always considered his restoration of 1142 one of his finest artistic achievements, because he did so much. He did so much in the way of metalwork, we'll see that, woodworking. He used a lot of masonite because he was the national spokesperson for the Masonite Corporation. He painted all of his oils on masonite. You will see also down the road pictures of the screened porch. The porch was always on the house, but he decided to screen it, and then he applied this wonderful grid work, symmetrical grid work, representing the grid work that he used on the masonite in his oil paintings. It reflected that basic sketching that he had done on the masonite. So in the house, this was the house as Grant Wood lived there for a while. You see the fence, the stone. See this juniper cedar tree. He wasn't really fond of the asymmetry of the house. See, the openings is a little wider there on the left, because when Old Man Oakes was building the house, he started to build it so it would have ended where the tree is, and then he decided he wanted to make it a little bigger, so he added about 12 feet on, and that left it this way. Well, that drove Grant Wood crazy. So he planted that little cedar tree that grew up to be quite a tree by the time he died. Grant Wood had not done lithography prior to his coming to Iowa City and living at the house. All of his lithography, he did 15 black and whites and 4 hand-colored lithographs. And we'll see those a little bit later. And this is him outside the side door under his back steps down to the backyard, working on one of the sketches or whatever. He laid in all the limestone pathways and sidewalks. He did this sidewalk, he did the step up to the front porch, and then you see the beautiful louvered door. On the side yard, and you see to the right, he was sketching the figure, guy who lived just down the street, for Spring in Town. And there you see a nice picture of the gridwork on the screen porch on the side of the house. This table in his kitchen was kind of cool. It flips up. It flipped up. So if he wanted extra room in the table, he could just, it was on hinges, so he just flip it up in the air. And he also used the table for preparing his lithographs, and some of the hand coloring was done there and that sort of thing. Again, the picture of him at the back. This is a little lamp that he converted from an oil lamp into an electrical lamp. It's the same configuration now that it was back then. Great picture of him and Carl Sandburg at the table that Grant Wood built on that screen porch. It's a wonderful table that folds down and then flips up, and it's a great serving table. There's a wonderful picture of Grant Wood and Carl Sandburg in the billiards room in the house. We'll be coming to that later. But I see we didn't have, I don't have a slide of that picture, so I want to tell you this little story. The university wonderfully did a book, and maybe some of you have it, 1142. They did that book. It was finished in 2008. And from 2012 and 13, the university did two videos that you're really going to love when they're released. One is a documentary of the four owners of the house. Pardon? The four owners of the house, and then there's a DVD of a house tour, kind of like we're doing today. And so when the videographers were filming, they were very ingenious, and they went out and they found, turned up a lot of new information. Well, they found this wonderful little lady, Mendel Bashar, and she was Grant Wood's last live-in housekeeper. She's now about 97 years old. She's about this tall, white hair, just funnier than everything. So, do you think that Jim Hayes would allow me to come and see where my bedroom was and that sort of thing? And of course, she came and her family we went through. Yeah, it was really a lot of fun. And I was talking to her as we were walking around, and I said, well, Mendel, when you were working for Grant Wood, did you meet these famous people that were guests at the house? You know, like Burl Ives and Katharine Hepburn and Thomas Hart Benton, John Stewart Curry. You just go through the list of all the famous people at the time. And she said, oh, no. I just cooked, and I served the meals. I cleaned, and that's what I did. So we walk into the billiards room with a picture of Grant Wood and Carl Sandburg. And she looked and said, well, there's one of them right there, which was just kind of cute. His living room at the time, an old square grand piano that he had for his then wife, Sarah. She was an opera singer. He built that little stand off to the right. All the windows in the house are in the front. They're all ceiling to floor kind of windows, and he had covered everything with lots of curtains, as you can see, and drapes. And Dr. Moore, who was the next owner after Grant Wood, did follow the same practice. She kept the house looking very much as it was when Grant Wood was there. One of the first things I did, with no disrespect to Dr. Moore or Grant Wood, I took all the drapes down, I took the rose wallpaper down and all that kind of stuff and got it back to a lighter look. A picture of the living room when Grant Wood was there, that was a chaise lounge chair that he designed, and the little light is off there, you see, that he used to use for reading. He hammered this copper hood that's over the fireplace. His fireplace equipment is still there in my house. a picture of his sister over the fireplace. Over in the in the back corner, he wanted to have something living in the house and kind of a living sculpture. So he took some old rabbit wire and formed it around the window frame inside, and then had pots that he put in there. And I'm having a hard time with this thing. Anyway, you see the pots, and painted them white and started growing ivy in there that grew up that gridwork. I have that outside on the side of the garden house now. But the bookshelves, I mean, as I said, here's a guy who's painting and printmaking and sculpting and all kinds of sculpting stone. And he had time to build the bookcases, very finely detailed edges on the shelves. The top shelves, the top shelf of books are Oak's books. The next two are Grant Wood, and then the rest of them are Dr. Moore and myself. His dining room table, he came during the Depression, didn't have a lot of money, so he went downtown and got iron legs out of a department store, welded them together, painted them, and built a wooden top, about a 12-foot top, which he covered with masonite. Nice polish on it. Then he built in the sideboard behind, did the little decorative stuff in masonite, of course. You'll be saying masonite before the lecture's over. And the shelves that you see over the sideboard, those are his design, and those were in a lot of rooms in the house when I took over. He designed the chairs and had the 12 chairs made out of the Amana colonies. Again, a closer view of the copper hood that he hammered. He did all of the lithographs were done at 1142, and he did the hand-colored. He worked on the hand-colored ones, as you can see at that black table that I showed you, in the kitchen. His back would have been to, in the area where I have my stove now, my range in the kitchen. When I bought the house of Dr. Moore, she said, well, I think some things should stay with the house. And one of them is the dining room table and the chairs. And she said there's a portfolio of pictures in his bedroom, what was his bedroom, the billiards room now. And she said that should stay here. That was here when, and I understand that those were student works from just before he died. So fast forward, Nan was coming to visit the house, and we had dinner, and after dinner I took her upstairs and I had laid this portfolio of pictures out there, 87 pictures, plus a partially finished oil of a little boy standing next to a globe, a world globe. I said, Nan, you're the expert on your brother's work. Take a look at these and see if you see anything valuable. And she went through several of them, and she came to this. And she said, oh, my Jim, you must keep this. That no one has ever seen this before. Frame it, keep it. And it's been at the Smithsonian twice now and down at the Figge in different places. But just a great little, you see Grant Wood everywhere in that picture. It's quite amazing. These are the 4 hand-colored lithographs. I have them in the kitchen. I thought it was appropriate to have them in the kitchen where they were done. For 25 years, I tried to find a set. And finally, the Associated American Artists people in New York called and said, Jim, we have this set. A lady from Long Island just died. She bought these in 1938 from Grant Wood. Grant and his sister and brother-in-law hand-colored 250 each of these, and they sold them for $6.50 a piece. So they've gone up a little bit since that time. But I thought it was so appropriate that I bring it back to the kitchen. When Nan was there, she was pointing out where Grant was planning to do a reflecting pool before he died. Coincidentally, I showed her this stone piece, clamshell. And she said, well, what he was planning to do is sculpt clamshells and rim the reflecting pool with these clamshells. And that was the only one he got finished before he died. So when I was redoing the kitchen in 1993, we were taking sheet after sheet of wainscoting of masonite off the kitchen walls and pulled it off. And here's the sketch that Grant Wood did of the reflecting pool with those little clamshells around the edge. Now, we weren't able, you can see the plaster's in bad shape, so we weren't able to keep it, but we got to have these pictures anyway. A nice picture of a yard light in the back that's very prominent. Grant Wood designed that and built that. There's a smaller one off to the side of the yard. And then he designed and created the tin lantern at the top. And he found that when he got it to a certain height, it wasn't tall enough. So up where the insulators are, he added a table leg to make it a little bit taller. Creative he was. Parson Weems Fable, remember I told you about the red star and see the beautiful louvered doors. This was done in my bedroom, which was one of his studios at that time. And so right in front of where this potted plant is was where he worked on it. And I talked to, again, the woman next door. She lived next door. She was a grandchild. And she talked with Grant Wood as he painted Parson Weems Fable for about 6 months. And she said, let's see if I have time to tell all this stuff. Got 15 minutes left. She said that her nephew, John Oakes, and Grant Wood's stepdaughter were playing around him as he was painting this one day. Said, I'm going to go downstairs and have lunch. Don't you kids touch this painting. It's wet paint. And well, you know what happened then. John goes up and he swipes his finger across the painting. And Wood comes back. He's very angry and he kicks the kids out. So fast forward to 2008, I had a 150th birthday party for the house. And I invited John Oakes to come back. He'd been a prosecutor out in San Francisco. And he came back and I told this little story and he got up from his chair and came up to the front. And he said, I just want to add one thing to what Jim has told you. When Wood came up to chew us out and kick us out, he took me by the earlobe and dragged me out through the upstairs and down the stairs and kicked me in the butt on the way out. So, again, another picture of the nice picture of the bookcase and the shot of the front of the house. Again, another picture of the porch that I thought you should see. This is the upstairs of the carriage house, and this little chest here was a chest that you will see in pictures of 5 Turner Alley, except it will be all dark because it was walnut and kept dark up there. When he moved to Iowa City, he painted the bottom part white because he wanted it to be white against the wainscoting in the dining room. But Jay Malash, a friend of ours from the Smithsonian, keeps wanting me to donate this chest to the Smithsonian, and I keep saying no, and I got one of her books signed, and she said, I love your chest, and I want. She's not going to get the chest. That stays with the university. Picture of the juniper tree when Dr. Moore, see how it's growing? So that gives you an idea of his foresightness. This was, I had a couple of pictures here of Dr. Moore, the house when Dr. Moore was here. A nice Marvin Cohen up above the fireplace. This was her dining room. She kept, see how she kept it very much as Grant Wood had. This was, in fact, the chair coverings that you see in the picture here were the same chair covering that Grant Wood had when he lived there. It's just some pictures of my ownership, the pool, where the reflecting pool would have been. This is significant because Grant Wood casted this bird bath in concrete, and it started to leak and be a problem. So I had a copper pan made for the inside, and we use it for flowers now. Another view of the backyard. My nephew James Hayes is a sculptor in Ireland, and he did the figures for the sculpture fountain. Interestingly, this fountain sits atop a cistern, which was part of a cistern system in the old house, and we recycle the water for the fountain. Just more of Grant Wood's handiwork. Where the figures are, the Kaiser porcelain, was a window that looked out on the screen porch, and Grant Wood took part of that porch and made a little bathroom on the other side of it when he had his bedroom up front. And so he didn't want to just close up the window, so he utilized it and made shelves for displaying things. He did the shelving work on the dining room window over on the right. He used masonite to create those little slide-in places. Got a few more pictures of the house as it is now. This was Grant Wood's bedroom. My billiards room now. Christmas conservatory. I'll come back to the conservatory in a minute. This is my living room. It's facing east, and then my dining room now. Another fountain picture. Living room now shows again the wonderful copper hood that he designed and hammered. The top room on the left is a little bedroom. That was Mendel's bedroom when she was a housekeeper at the house. And down below it is the first bathroom in the house, and they took part of the girls' bedroom, made it in the bathroom. Significant here, and up in the right-hand corner are cupboards that Grant Wood built. You remember at 5 Turner Alley, he lowered the tub because the ceilings weren't very high in 5 Turner. Here he raised the bathtub about 9 or 10 inches, just because he could. And that's the equipment that was there when he was at the house. Then up in the right-hand corner, again, the cabinet was one that he made. The tile in the bathtub area, shower area, is interesting because it's masonite. And in the house where there was wainscoting, he replaced the wainscoting because he's a national spokesperson for masonite, and replaced it, and he designed this routing tool to make a perfect groove to show that it was like real wainscoting, and replaced all the old wainscoting. And in the bathroom, in his shower, he used that tool to make the masonite look like tile. And it's really cool. Since 1935, that shower has been used, and it's perfectly solid and excellent today. Bottom right, that's a little bedroom upstairs, and Park Renard lived in that bedroom. Dr. Moore's live-in housekeeper lived there for many years, Gracie. This set is out of Bruce Moore. And when the Douglases were redoing their house or whatever in the early 30s, they gave this set to a couple in Iowa City, Jim and Una Shaw. People may remember Jim, but he was the director of the Iowa City Airport. They were moving from their house to an apartment, had a sale, and I was able to buy that set from them and bring it to the house. Another few more pictures of the house as it is today. And I wanted to end my part, and then I'll turn it over to Maura. This is a conservatory that I built in 1997. Bill Novish designed the conservatory so that see how nicely he picked up the arches and the height of the windows and that sort of thing. And the paneling that you see at the bottom reflect and replicate the paneling in the big windows in the front of the house. If we focus to 2009, and I'm going to get into, as an introduction to Maura's part of the discussion, Jay Milosh and Joni Kinsey and I had talked about doing something to get Grant Wood's name and legacy going. I went out for the Obama inauguration, and and we talked. Jane and I talked more about out there, and we decided to have a symposium. So that's January. In April, we had the first Grant Wood Symposium up on the lawn, the west lawn, had tents up. We had about 60 people, had two speakers from the Smithsonian, and Joni spoke, and President Mason introduced the symposium to the crowd. In April, after that symposium, a few of us are sitting in the conservatory, and it included Doug True, Linda Maxson, the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts, and John Belden Scott, the Director of the School of Art and History. And in my gift, in 2002, I'd executed a gift agreement with the University of Iowa, saying that at my death or sooner, that I'd gift the house and properties to the university, and the house would be used for visiting dignitaries, small exhibits, that sort of thing. And in respect to the four houses in back, it would be my wish that those houses would be used to house visiting artists. And there's just a one-liner in the gift agreement. So we're sitting there, and Doug True says, "Well, what do you mean by that? What would you like to happen?" I said, "Well, Grant Wood in 1932 and 1933 had the Stone City colony. It'd be kind of nice. We had artists mingling back there and working back there, and we have them right here today. And that would be a nice thing to do when I kick off." And he said, many of you know Doug True, and he's a no-nonsense, get-it-done guy. And he says, "Well, how about doing it right now?" And I said, "Yay, that'd be wonderful." And so we looked over at Linda, and keep in mind, this is the year after the recession and budget problems, all that. He looked over at Linda and he said, "Well, Linda, you can come up with $250,000, can't you?" And poor Linda just gulped and said, "Sure, we'll make it work." So we did. And we started planning for what is now the Grant Wood Art Colony. And in 2011, we named our first fellow. And since that time, we have, and Maura will be going into detail with you about this, but we've moved into three. We're hoping, one in painting, one in printmaking, and performance art. And we're hoping that we can expand soon into public art and art history. So that's where we're going with this thing. Now we are building a fence and gate around the four houses to identify it. When you drive down Burlington Street, you'll see this wonderful fence. And we tried to pick up some of the limestone detail that Grant Wood did in the front. And it's a simple fence, as you see, but it'll set the place off thanks to my friends, John and Kim Callahan. We're putting the fence up now rather than later, so that's pretty nice. So that is a little story about the Grant Wood House and how it's a part of this complex. And we think that I'll tell you this, when I take people through the house, and I'm starting to look like Bernie. Well, so at any rate, when I take people through and everybody's excited about the house. Everybody loves the house, and it's a great house, easy house to love. But when I walk through the garage and take them back and show them the colony and tell people what we're doing with the colony, then their eyes really light up. And it's something that's happening. It's something exciting. And it shows how multidisciplinary the guy was. And it showcases the University of Iowa. It showcases Iowa City. It showcases Iowa to the nation and beyond. And we're pretty proud of it. So thank you very much, and I'll have more.
can you hear me? Bring this up a little bit. Everybody in back? No. Shoot. Maybe I'll have to use Jim's. Now can you hear me? If I stand, I'll eat the microphone. I was hoping this would be more useful because I talk with my hands. So to start off, right off the bat, that's Jim's house. That isn't where I work. That isn't the Grantwood Art Colony, and that isn't where our fellows live, although they love to live there because it is a beautiful place to live. If you think back to one of the first slides we saw, it was that aerial map and those 4 houses behind. Currently, the Grantwood Art Colony occupies 2 of those houses. We have an administrative office back there, and our fellows also live there. So, the Grantwood Art Colony celebrates the life and legacy of Grant Wood, as you just heard Jim introduce. It is situated in the Provost's Office of Outreach and Engagement. As such, we're able to work very closely with the School of Art and Art History, the Division of Performing Arts, and other programs across the campus. It also connects the colony with a network of communities, programs, organizations, all sorts of different entities across the state. And that's a huge thing for promoting the life and legacy of Grant Wood, to actually get Grant Wood outside of Johnson County or even eastern Iowa, to make sure everybody remembers Grant Wood and what he was about. So each year, as Jim mentioned, the colony hosts 3 fellows, one in painting and drawing, one in printmaking, and one in interdisciplinary performance. The fellows, while living at the colony houses, they're expected to teach 1 course per semester, engage Iowans through programs and workshops across the state, and also pursue their artistic endeavors. And that's one of those things that's really nice about this fellowship, is that you see they're only teaching 1 course per semester, leaving the rest of their time to actually create art. And that's a very special and intentional portion of this fellowship. The colony also hosts a biennial symposium, which Jim mentioned and was talking about the first one, and that makes sure that we keep Grant Wood on the minds of people and allow them to pursue research and present it every other year. So, as Jim mentioned, the Grant Wood Art Colony hosted its first fellow in 2011, and that was a fellowship in teaching. And then in the fall of 2012, we were able to expand it to printmaking and painting and drawing. And here are some works of former and current painting and drawing and printmaking fellows. In fact, we have 2 of our current fellows' work up here, although it's sliced up. I'm sure they're not very happy about that. We have our painting and drawing fellow, Neil Rock's work, as well as our printmaking fellow, Terry Conrad's work. And we chose those initial media because they were very true to the media in which Grant Wood worked. You know, we have, he was very big in, of course, drawing, and here we have a sample of that with the Study for Self-Portrait, which is a charcoal and pastel on paper from 1932. We have lithography, printmaking. We have his February from 1940. And we also have Young Corn, which, imagine this, is oil on masonite from 1931. And then in the fall of 2013, we were able to expand our fellowships to interdisciplinary performance. And that fellowship rotates between dance, music, and theater. And each year, the Interdisciplinary Performance Fellow teaches a collaboration course. And that was intentional by the Division of Performing Arts because they wanted to make sure that all of their students had access to this visiting artist. I had to really look carefully at this to make sure none of the students were doing anything they shouldn't be doing. So hopefully they're not. The fellows bring their expertise and skills into the classroom, but also have the opportunity to introduce their students to Grant Wood. Here's a great example of this. These are students, theater students, from California to New York. None of them were from Iowa. And here they are at the American Gothic House Center in Eldon, Iowa. And that was under the direction of last year's theater fellow, Karina Amelia. And what was really neat about this class is that they chose, because of their inspiration that they gained here, they chose to do their final project as a performance of a devised theater piece based on Grant Wood's life. So here at least all these students walked away knowing a lot about Grant Wood. The fellows visit area colleges, so they're not just stuck here at the University of Iowa. Over the past several years, they've spoken at Loras College, Clark University, Coe College, also the University of Northern Iowa. They also have the opportunity to take their work and present outside of the state and taking their Grant Wood Fellowship title outside of the state. This year, we've had our fellows have spoken at Skidmore College, UW Oshkosh, Connecticut College, St. Cloud University, UC Santa Barbara, Stanford, and Western Michigan. Of course, most of these are because our music fellow, Christopher Jetty, took his one-man electronic opera on the road and was touring it this year, so that's where most of those come from. The fellows present their work at organizations and various community centers across the state. These range from museum members to collections of artists. In fact, this year we are celebrating Grant Wood's 125th birthday, and our fellow Neil Rock was invited to present at the Papa John Education Center in Des Moines, and that took place last February. Of course, engaging the next generation of artists is truly important to continuing Grant Wood's legacy. Grant Wood was a lifelong educator from his early years as a professor or a teacher at McKinley Junior High in Cedar Rapids in the 1920s to the Stone City Art Colony in the 1930s, and then all the way until his death as a University of Iowa faculty member. So we want to make sure we're continuing to work with the young people. Well, in the Office of Outreach and Engagement, we're very fortunate because I work with Arts Chair Leslie Feener, and that's one of their major goals is to get arts out throughout the schools across Iowa. And this is a great example of how that can happen. In October, our printmaking fellow, Terry Conrad, held a 2-day printmaking workshop for a bunch of students at the Creative Arts Academy in Davenport. Also in honor of the 125th birthday, this year we decided to offer a Grant Wood Legacy Prize to very talented high school students across the state. And this year's winners were Terry Habenchidi from Urbandale, Natalie Jacobson from Spencer, and Polyphony Bruna from Ames. And we look forward to making this award every year in collaboration with the Bell and Blank Center. And then I'd like to invite you all to come back in October to the biannual Grant Wood Symposium. The theme this year is Myth, Memories, and the Midwest. While this will be our 5th symposium, this is the first year in which we did a call for papers, and we received 24 proposals. Yeah, it's kind of cool. What this meant to me, though, is that it's not just, it means that Grant Wood as a topic is gaining relevancy. And also, the people outside of Iowa also think that Grant Wood is a big deal. Our proposals came from across the country, including one from Paris, and this is research being done on Grant Wood. In fact, several museums are have upcoming exhibitions on Grant Wood. The Art Institute this summer in June will have their, it's America After the Fall, Painting from the 1930s exhibition. And this, as a centerpiece of this exhibition, is American Gothic. Why this is important is that it will be the first time that American Gothic leaves the country. It starts in Chicago, and then it goes to Paris, and then London. So again, people all around the world will get to see the real deal for once, and not these spoofs that we always are seeing. The research presented at these symposia go on to be published either as individual papers, and in many cases have become books. And you can continue to learn more about the Grant Wood Art Colony on our website. And with that, I hope that I'll see a lot of you back here this fall for our symposium. And we'll open it up to questions for either Jim or me.
Questions?
How did he ever become tied in with Masonite? It seems like such a bizarre tie.
Well, yeah. Well, he had been painting on Masonite for his early career, and American Gothic is on Masonite, and they contacted him after he moved to Iowa City, and that's when he became the national spokesperson. So I will tell you that I took off not tons, but hundreds and hundreds of pounds of Masonite. I didn't think I was disrespecting Grant Wood. I kept the essence, but boy, there was Masonite in the hallways and in the kitchen and upstairs and whatever, a lot of Masonite, yes.
Did he use the front of the Masonite or the back of
He used the shiny surface.
Because
Yeah.
my dad used to paint, and he would sometimes use the other side.
Oh, that's kind of
Use
cool.
acrylics to
Yeah.
take that.
No.
It's a wonderful texture.
Yeah, it's a
I don't
great.
think he did either.
No, just the shiny surface. Yeah.
What's going to happen with the old art building down by the river that he was involved with?
Rod, you're the man.
It's going to be repurposed. It's going to be retained. It was in our agreement with FEMA. It is currently in what the federal government calls a mothballed state, and it will be maintained, and then we will reprogram the building. And there has been a study that has been completed in coordination, in requirement by FEMA for the reprogramming of the building, and not a dedicated function, but generally related to the arts, and they went through an entire study with us and with consultants. We still have administrative efforts to do to take in funding to take a building that is very impacted by the 2008 flood and bring it back, but it will be refurbished.
Kind of an interesting follow-up on what Rod just said, and we just discovered this to talk about it anyway the last few days, and that is in 1934, Grant Wood's first gallery actually was in the dry swimming pool at Halsey Hall, and not at the building in 1936. There's no, yeah.
I understand that F.W. Kent used to photograph subject matter for Grant Wood, and then Grant Wood would paint from these photographs. Have you run across any of that in the research that you've done?
I didn't have, Bob, I didn't have that name, but of course we all know F.W. Kent. But Grant Wood did utilize photographs. I remember talking to James Parks Morton. That's right, isn't it? The little boy in Parsons Fable, and he's in the video of the house and the story of the house. But at any rate, he was telling how his father was in the arts, and his father served as the elder person in the painting, and he was a little boy, and that they staged the pose, and then Grant Wood had somebody take pictures, and maybe it was Mr. Kent that took pictures. And I just said to Bob Burns that it would really be fun if we could find that stash of photos. And, the photos are almost as hidden as the biography, Grant Wood's biography, which was written by Park Renard, and nobody knows if it was ever finished. I know I knew Park until his death, and he kept saying, I'm working on the biography. Well, now he died, and we'd love to have him have the finished product, but his wife is very against publishing it, and the daughter is very much against publishing it. So we have our work cut out for us to try to recover all this. Are we going to get that cornerstone opened up, right?
We can. It'd be like, make sure it's not Al Capone's
Yeah.
falls, but at some point we will be able to. There's some, you have to cut some stone out of them.
Yeah.
But we believe it's there.
Well, I tell you, Joni Kinsey is very excited about it, getting her hands on what's in that cornerstone of the old building. Any more? Yeah. Hi, Mary.
Under the auspices of Fred Kent was engaged to take those photographs, but they were actually taken by a woman named Ruth McCusker, who was the wife of the University of Iowa wrestling coach. And I did an oral history interview with her, and I know that. I
Wow.
don't think there's any surviving negatives because Fred Kent's daughter, Barbara Kent Buckley, said they were destroyed, some of them.
Oh. So the authority, Mary Bennett, is telling us about. Mary's the head of the historical center in Iowa City. Yeah, back here, John.
How do you balance remodeling a house that you want to live in, but be true to Grant Wood and not destroy anything that would horrify other people without such
Well, the question was, how did I go about restoring and remodeling and not destroy previous owners? The essence of what I wanted to do was to get the house back to its footprint in 1858. Dr. Moore had done no harm to the place. She dropped the ceiling in the kitchen, took out windows, and we replaced those windows. Grant Wood had erected walls on the second floor because he brought his mother down to live in an apartment upstairs. So my bedroom was divided in two with the wall. The old hired girls room, it was called, now my master bedroom, was divided in two. And there's a little bath over here, and there's a little kitchen over here for his mother. Dr. Moore took out the kitchen, made a nice little bunk room out of it for her son, Tom. So in 1993, 86, I guess, I took the wall out in my bedroom and returned that to the original size. Grant Wood had been very sensitive. He had not nailed any nails into the floor, into the oak floor, and so that was very cool. And then in 93, when I did the kitchen over, raised the ceiling up to 10 feet, and put windows back in on the north wall, then those were the only really big changes. When I moved in, every inch of the floor was covered with either linoleum or carpeting. And probably luckily that it was covered that way, because I started pulling corners up, and that's not so bad. Dr. Moore said, "Oh, Jim, the floors are terrible. You always want to keep them covered." So I pulled up a corner in the kitchen, and there were stains in there. But my God, the place is 150 years old. What do you expect? Went through the Civil War. But at any rate, I started taking up and removing all of the carpets and linoleum, and that was a big part. And I thought that was within my plan of taking the house back to the original footprint. So that's really what it is today. The only major addition, the only big addition, is the conservatory that you saw that I did in 1997. So thanks. I don't have open houses, but I have had many functions there for the museum, for the library, for various things. And I wanted, this house is so cool. And it's a true pioneer house, true frontier house. And bless her heart, when Dr. Moore was there, she was much more private about that, and they kept it pretty well closed up. And I've been, I opened it up, and I want to have people there. I want them to see it. I want everybody here to look in from the street and walk around the yard once in a while. And wait until I ask you, but I mean, I do have surveillance cameras, so. But anyway, that's my attitude about it. I want people to see it. I want them to understand how important this is to our nation and to our state, to the city,
I just want to thank Jim and Maura. I'm sure that they will be willing to maybe stay a little bit longer to answer additional questions, but thank you both so much for all that you're doing for Grant Wood Art Colony. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks very much.